that kind of energy kind of like gets emitted, right? Like we fall into these like belief systems that are based on fear and judgment, and then we start being afraid and being judgmental. And you can actually notice this like this energetic form of that. Like there's thoughts, right? You can notice like if you have like thoughts that are like anxious thoughts, right? People go to like the psychologist because they have anxious thoughts, right? Or they go to for anger issues. It's like, but you can kind of notice at a more primal, not primal, but just like more fundamental level, right? You can actually notice like this just like this fear activity, this fear stream that's just kind of like constantly running. It's below the level of thoughts, all right? And same with judgment. You know, if you notice really deeply, you can notice like this just stream of judgment that just goes out towards things that you don't like, people that you don't like, and things that you're angry at, etc. Right? Um, Now that is like a some sort of like energetic transmutation of like just negative belief systems that are like floating around in the collective, and like we like pick them up and buy into them as if they're true, and then pump out fear and judgment ourselves. Yeah. Anyway, that stuff like turns into pain, right? That's like the source of it. That's the lowest levels of pain creation, fear and judgment, right? Um, so you want to kind of stop that, right? You want to not be afraid, and you want to not be judgmental. Two immediate things that you want to do, yeah. Um, but in terms of stopping that, it's not like you can like think your way into it or focus on it and like try to exert some power over it, right? You can't like just don't be afraid or like just stop being like you cannot do it, right? So the only way to kind of like end that cycle is to replace it with something else. And that's more of like a heart focus, a love focus, and a breath focus. Okay. And that just kind of like ends that. It's just like you literally unplug from that mode of consciousness, right? It's basically, I've covered this in some other material that I've done in a podcast I have called the Mind Blown Zone with someone called Brad. And we talk about how there's kind of like two states of consciousness. There's like this egoic consciousness, you might label it, that's like fear and judgment oriented, and then there's a heart consciousness, and like just life consciousness. It's just like you're you're outside of that fearsome judgmental thought stream. You're just not in that, right? You haven't fixed it, you haven't ended it, right? It's like if you have like um it's like if you live in one area that's just like everything there's bad, right? Like a neighborhood. It's just a bad neighborhood. All these problems always happen in this bad neighborhood, right? So you could fix the entire neighborhood. You could keep trying to fix the whole neighborhood, or you could just move neighborhood, right? And then you just move to another neighborhood. This isn't a debate about what's possible in terms of finances. It's just imagine if, right, you move to another neighborhood and then all the problems just aren't there, right? And that's what you can kind of do. So the perpetuation of the pain in your body fundamentally comes from the continued fear and judgment oriented energies. Okay. That's like the fundamental cause of the reason why they become chronic, right? Stay chronic. So if a few times a day, whenever you notice that, you're like, oh, I'm in that mode, right? Oh, I'm in that. What you do is you go, okay, you're like, oh, okay, I have awareness, right? First step is awareness. Easiest thing to focus on from there is your breath. Start to focus here, just in the nose. You can do things like fully breathe out right? I usually find 3 breaths. So you're actually like, oh yeah, I'm here. I'm breathing. Then you shift the awareness down to the lungs. So instead of just focusing on the nose, you're like, feel full breath, nose and lungs, right? And then from there, you take the focus into the heart. And once you get the focus on the heart, you literally just don't hear those energies anymore. Like those thoughts that are like rushing around, being all afraid and like worrying and anxious and angry at stuff, they literally just are no longer there. And this isn't like a trick. This isn't repression. This is literally just stepping off that mode of consciousness because that mode of consciousness is always available to you. You don't have to live in that, right? That's the kind of trick that you think that you need to like fix that mode of consciousness, but that mode of consciousness just exists. Some people just don't live there ever, right? So you can actually just step outside of that and just be here. Now, there's no like you're going to go back into it. You're going to go back into the fear in that, but you just keep coming out of it. And you basically just end up spending less time in that mode of consciousness and you spend more time in this breath and heart oriented consciousness, love oriented consciousness. And basically, when you're in that, it's just like healing energies circulate throughout the body. It's not like a scientific biological explanation, but it's just like that, right? Like you basically go into the mode of living where you feel good and then everything's good in that space. Like your body heals, you feel better, your life starts going better, etc. Okay, that's the content that I want to deliver. Does anyone have any specific questions about that? Or did that resonate with anybody? It'd be great if someone could speak up here because it takes two